From afar, some dynasties make building a sovereign power look easy. Others perhaps show us the exact opposite. In Italy, the Lombard kingdom demonstrated just how effortlessly a dynasty can rise and fall. First gaining relevance in the early medieval period of the 6th century, the Germanic people of the Lombard family participated in a mass migration to the Italian peninsula, prompting disunion of the region that was unprecedented since the Roman conquest. Formerly allied with the Byzantine Empire, which was currently under the authority of Emperor Justinian, the Lombards, piloted by King Alboin, showed no hesitation in conquering territories throughout northern and southern Italy. This new sharing of space between multiple powers caused both political and geographical confusion, as the borders of each domain were ever-changing. The Lombard kingdom consisted of two prominent areas, known as Langobardia Major in the north and Langobardia Minor in the south. The structure of the Lombard kingdom was broken down into a vast number of duchies, and then further split into municipalities known as Gastaldets. The duchies were governed by semi-autonomous dukes, whereas the Gastaldets answered to their Gestald. This division of power on such a broad scale made for a shaky foundation from the start, with the overarching sovereignty of the king being centered in the capital of Pavia. The first sign of weakness within the newly established kingdom came in the form of an assassination in 572. Rosamund, the wife of King Alboin, and her lover, a Lombard nobleman by the name of Helmichis, orchestrated the assassination of the kingdom's ruler. After Alboin's demise, the treacherous couple even attempted to seize the throne for themselves, but were ultimately chased out of Lombard territory altogether. Subsequently, the 35 reigning dukes within the kingdom decided to elect a new king, Clef. Known to have expanded the kingdom by overpowering Tuscia and Ravenna, the new ruler was also able to do away with a considerable level of the Latin aristocracy. Unfortunately for the monarchy, though, another blow rattled the integrity of its core when King Clef was murdered in 574 by one of his own men. Undoubtedly contributing further to the unsteadiness within the amateur kingdom, the dukes spent the next decade reigning with complete autonomy over their duchies, having neglected to choose a new king. It took 10 years before the dukes came to the realization that such a precarious distribution of power may be ultimately damaging the kingdom, as opposed to benefiting it. Finally, in 584, a son of the previous king, Authari, was crowned. In a much-needed effort, King Authari moved to re-establish the kingdom and its place in Italy. As part of this endeavor, Authari styled himself the protector of all of the Romans within Lombard territory, appealing to the Western Roman Empire and widening the divide between his own kingdom and the Byzantine Empire. The following year brought even more of a schism between the Greek and Germanic powers of Italy, where the Byzantines were compelled to request an armistice from the Lombards. Around the time of these events, the Lombards also faced a potential threat from the Frankish Empire. Authari attempted to secure peace with the encroaching power by marrying a Frankish princess. However, he was unable to make that happen. In a dramatic turn of events, the Lombard king instead wedded a Bavarian princess from the Lethings dynasty, officially tying him to a clear enemy of the Franks. This matter pushed the Frankish and Byzantine empires to settle any conflict between themselves, allowing the Franks to then attack the antagonistic Lombards in 588 and 590. Holding off these advances, King Authari was able to create the first period of solidity and reliability within the kingdom. When his death occurred in 590, possibly the result of poisoning as part of a palace conspiracy, the king's widow used her own power to elect Agilulf, the Duke of Turin, as the new Lombard monarch and her new husband. The Assembly of the Lombards confirmed his inauguration the following year. During the reign of King Agilulf, the queen's influence became noteworthy, and many important political decisions have been attributed to both members of the royal couple. An example of this dual-strength authority is the actions taken in 594 in order to strengthen the kingdom's borders after a failed revolution attempt by some of the dukes. In contrasting approaches, the Lombards secured peace treaties with both France and the Pannonian Avars, meanwhile violating the pre-existing truce that had been made with the Byzantines, leading to almost a decade spent pushing into the opposing empire's borders to gain more territory. Yet another interesting plan of action was brought to life with the ascension of the new king to the Lombard throne in 616. King Adalald, a son of Agilulf, chose to take his crown through a Byzantine rite, subsequently identifying himself as Gratia de Rex, Totius Italiae, by the grace of God, King of all Italy, rather than Langobardorum Rex, King of the Lombards. At this point under the previous reign, the kingdom, which was predominantly made up of pagans and Arian Christians, had already faced a push towards the conversion to Catholicism. During Adalald's rule, tensions between the Arian and Catholic factions rose to the perilous height of a civil war. The conflict erupted in 624 with the Duke of Turin, Adalald's brother-in-law, Ariold, at the helm. By the end of 625, King Adalald was deposed, and Ariold became the Lombard monarch. Under the next few kings, discord continued between the Byzantine-opposed Arians and newly converted Catholics. The capital of the kingdom was also moved back to Pavia. Nonetheless, after the death of King Rodoald in 653, the monarchy was returned to the Catholics, with the crowning of King Eripert I. Warfare still ensued, both in another civil war and outward threats from the Franks and Byzantines after Eripert's death in 661. It wasn't until the reign of King Perctarit, after yet another quarrel over the throne, that peace was once again made with the Byzantine Empire, who now recognized the Lombards' authority over a large part of Italy. Even though the situation outside of the kingdom's borders had been calmed, within the domain, the circumstances remained strained. The next period of relative stability in the Lombard kingdom came during the rule of King Liutprand, beginning in 712. As the longest reigning Lombard sovereign, Liutprand aligned himself with the Franks and Avars, but was unable to maintain amity with the Byzantines or even the papacy in Rome. The Lombard monarch first attempted to use to his advantage the Arab siege of Constantinople in 717, but not much came out of it. The Lombard king followed through with a brilliant double cross, forming an alliance with the Pope himself and the Exarch of Ravenna, who was an enemy of the Pope. Somehow, Liutprand managed to work his scheme in a way that won him authority over the duchies of Spoleto and Benevento, and finally wrapped things up by negotiating a treaty between the Pope and Exarch that was favorable for the Lombards. After King Liutprand's death, the state of the kingdom reverted to its old, unstable condition. While future kings were able to make some notable advantage in terms of territory expansion, such as King Aistulf, who brought most of Italy under his authority by 751, even he soon faced severe external pressures and was forced to acknowledge defeat on multiple fronts, as the kingdom once again struggled to maintain consistency. Near the mid-8th century, a new king, Desiderius, was able to smooth relations with the current pope, Paul I, as well as marry his daughter to the Duke of Bavaria, and offer another to the future Charlemagne, though the latter was rejected. In 771, King Desiderius compelled Pope Stephen III to accept his protection, but the following pope did not approve of the agreement, and conflict between the Lombards and Romagna region resumed. Choosing to back the papacy, Charlemagne, now the ruler of the Franks, invaded Italy around 773 to 774, capturing the Lombard capital of Pavia, and styling himself by the grace of God King of the Franks and the Lombards. Ensuing this shattering loss, Desiderius and his wife were deported to Gaul, and his son, Adalgis, was forced to seek refuge with the Byzantines. The final reign of a true Lombard king had come to a bitter end. Thus ended Lombard Italy, and nobody can say whether this was, for our country, a fortune or a misfortune. Alboin and his successors were awkward masters, more awkward than Theodoric, so long as they had been barbarians camped on a conquered territory. But now they were assimilating with Italy, and could turn it into a nation, as the Franks were doing in France. But in France there wasn't the Pope. In Italy there was.